Hello and welcome to today's edition of GR Live. I am excited to have a special guest here, a long-term client of Great Recruiters, an author, a published author, a resilient man who has had a ton of success in the staffing industry. I'm joined here today with Len Adams, founder and CEO of ACG Resources. Len, welcome. And how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Thank you so much, Adam, for having me on. And thank you to the Great Recruiter listeners. Looking forward to having this conversation.
Yeah, and just a little bit of background about Len. You know, he has been in this industry for 40 plus years. He is the author of Resilience. It is a great book, a great read for anybody in the staffing industry, staffing firm owners. It talks about the difficulties, the challenges, and the amazing things that can happen when working within the staffing industry, building a business, being a business owner. And we'll unpack that a little bit. But just to give a little perspective, how well ACG Resources is respected. They've been around since 2022. And I won't steal the story from Len. He can tell you how this all began. But they have over 1,000 reviews, a 4.7 star rating, 88% highly recommended. Just in the past 4 months or 12 months, they've had over 140 reviews and nearly a 4.8 star rating. And what I loved was reading the book and realizing that Franca came with you to start this, and she is a glowing recruiter. She herself has over 300 reviews with a 4.7 stars. So kudos to you. You guys do great work. People love working with you. But why don't you start off? Tell us the story. How did you start ACG Resources, Len?
Okay. I'm going to give a little bit of a teaser because we don't want to give away the whole book. But basically, I've been in the staffing business since I was, believe it or not, 15 years old. I started working for a relative who owned a recruiting firm, which back then was called an employment agency. And I was working part-time while I was in high school, started college, and I just fell in love with the business. I mean, it's a different business today than it was so many years ago, but I just saw myself doing this. And I did because of several reasons. First of all, back then it was just a fun environment. It was really crazy, some of the stuff we did. You know, it was a big bullpen, and, you know, we used to laugh all the time and joke around, but we always were diligent in what we did. And I saw that we were impacting people's lives. And I said to myself, boy, what a great way to make a living. You're getting paid and you're helping people. And even back then, when I started recruiting probably when I was 19, okay, because I was going through college, and I decided I didn't want to stay in college. So I went back at night and I was working full time. And again, I just fell in love with the business, and, you know, it became a natural to me. And, you know, I'm not going to tell you that I was an overnight success, because I struggled a little bit. And there's some stories in the book about how I started and failed and started and failed, and, you know, until I found my niche. But like I said, it's a great business, and it's evolved over the last, I guess, 50 years. And I have a unique perspective when I talk to some of my other vendors about how I went from, you know, index cards and paper resumes to where we are today. And
file cabinets and colored dots, right?
Yes.
Fax machines. Faxing over.
Before fax machines. As a matter of fact, we used to mail resumes. Okay. And I'm going to go back to, there was a postal strike, I forget what year, and we were all panicking. So what we used to do was messenger the resumes to clients. Okay. It was amazing. You know, I'm going to just share one funny story with you. Someone asked me a long time ago, how has the business changed? And this is how I answered it. I said, 45 years ago, we'd get a job in, you'd start your search, you'd get resumes, you'd send them out, and that process would take about a week and a half. And then you'd wait a week and a half for feedback. Now we get a job in, within 24 hours, we have 5 resumes in front of the client, and then we wait a week and a half for feedback. So the delivery has changed, but the other side hasn't. They haven't kept up with us. But so that's my perspective.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
It's true. But, you know, I really do. I love the business, and I'm very fortunate. So getting back to your question, how did ACG start? So I was working for a family member. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but after many years of being there, we had a parting of the ways. and I was like a deer in the headlights, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was fortunate. My wife said to me, "But this is all you've done your whole life. This is all you know." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. This is all I know." She said, "So why don't you try it on your own?" I said, "Yeah, you're right." And I didn't have any money. Okay, so I mortgaged my house. And to my wife's credit, I said to her, "If this doesn't work, we're going to be back in an apartment in a year." She said, "Okay." And the proof is, a year to the day later, I bought her a new house. So
That's great.
and again, there's a lot of stories about this in the book. So I started ACG 23 years ago, August 2nd, 2002. Franca, who had worked with me at the other firm, called me after a month and said, "I can't stay here. I need to come with you." And I said, "I can't pay you. I don't have any money." She says, "I'll come for free." She said, "Because I believe in you." And she did. And it took us a month. We did our first deal together, and we never looked back. And she's been
Love
with
it.
me 20 years. I then brought my sons and my daughter in. I brought another guy, Dan McNichol, who's been with me 18 years. And I have really a great team, as evidenced by Great Recruiters, which I'm going to give a plug for Great Recruiters. It's been a wonderful product for me to analyze what my team does. And we're very fortunate because we do get really great reviews all the time. And it allows me to monitor them. If we get a bad review, or we get anything under 4.7, I call the candidate because I want to know why. All right.
Yeah.
And in a little while, I'll tell you a story about something that just happened today. We got a 2.8 review.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about that.
I'll tell you now, we got a 2.8 review.
Tell us a little bit. Who do you service? Where do you service? Just give us a little bit of background of who are the folks that you're helping out there found awesome opportunities.
Sure. On the client side, so it's the fire industries, financial services, banking, insurance, real estate. We do fintechs. I've traditionally worked with a lot of startups. I've had private equity firms that have brought me companies that they're funding or buying. So we're kind of, I call us generalist specialists. So our roots are in banking and financial services, but to keep it fresh, we take on other things. Probably the only thing we really don't touch much is pure IT, because to me, that's a language unto itself. And if I don't understand it, we can't service it. Okay. Right. But we do get things that what we haven't done before. And my strategy is I'm very transparent and honest with the potential client. And I'll tell you a story. We had one about a year or so ago. They came to me. It was a private equity owned eyewear manufacturer from overseas, and they needed a CEO in the States. And they were referred to me, and I met with them, and they said, "What do you know about the eyewear manufacturing business?" I said, "I wear glasses." And they looked at me. I said, "That's the extent of my knowledge." I said, "But can I recruit someone? You give me the specs. We'll figure out the targets. We'll find you someone." I said, "But I'm being honest with you. I don't have a
You give me the specs, no pun intended.
Yeah, right, no pun intended. I didn't think of that. So they went away. They came back after 2 weeks, and they said, "Okay, here's where we are. We have a firm in Europe that knows the space inside and out, but they don't know the States." They said, "You're in the States, but you don't know the space." They said, "But we like you and we believe you. So we're going to give you the retainer, or we're going to give you the search." And inside of a month, we filled it.
That's outstanding.
There. And so we always tell that story to potential clients because I'm naturally inquisitive. So I always apologize because I ask a million questions because I want to know about the industry. I want to know about the culture. I want to know everything I need to know. And then thankfully with the internet now, we can do a lot of research. And we always tell them, if we can't do it, we'll tell you in 24 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And where are you guys based out of?
Well, I'm in New Jersey now. I just moved. We are a virtual operation.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to go behind the curtain. I was virtual since 2004. When I started the business in 2002, I rented space. And after about a year or so, I started saying to myself, I'm going into the office, the small little office, to get on emails and make phone calls. I can do that anywhere.
Right.
So I gave up the space. And then I bought another firm and we had space with them, but I would go in once a week. And my team, everyone I hired, I tell them, you're going to be remote.
Yeah.
So when when COVID hit, everybody panicked. And for me, I said, it's Thursday.
It's Thursday. Nothing's changed.
And so we never told anybody we were remote, because
right.
I thought that maybe they wouldn't accept it. But now it's not an issue. So,
no, it's normal. We're both in our homes talking.
We go by appointment if we really need to see somebody. Otherwise, we do this. We do the same thing.
And you're recruiting nationally now. I mean, it sounds like you've got internationally, quite honestly, is what it sounds like. You've got folks. And one of the things that you said, and I know it in the book, referrals. You get a lot of your business from referrals, from people who had, and that's how really a lot of the business kicked off, where old clients of yours realizing you did your own thing and they're reaching out. Talk to me about that, because, we have this industry that is highly transactional. My story and why I started Great Recruiters. It was about the reputation, and we're always up against this negative reputation. What do you feel you've done different to establish yourself as that trusted advisor, that people are seeking you out to help them find great talent? What are the things that you think have been key to building that kind of organization and culture, Len?
It's relationships. I tried to make every deal we do, every interaction with a client and with a candidate, not transactional, but relationship. Some of my best friends, I'm going away with people in a couple of weeks that were a client. For years, and we became personal friends. And I can tell you probably hundreds of stories of people that, they know my family, they know my kids, they know my grandkids, and I know them. And that's been the way I've operated for years. There's a story in the book. I think you probably picked up on it. I had a client years ago who was extremely busy all the time. I think you know the story I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I said to her, here's my home phone number. And she says, your home phone number? I said, yeah. I said, if you can't speak during the day, call me at night. She goes, oh, I could never bother you at night. I said, if I didn't want to offer it, I wouldn't give it to you. She became one of my best clients. She would call me 7 o'clock at night. I'd be finishing dinner. I would grab a napkin to take the job because I wasn't prepared for the call. Okay. And it turned out she knew my wife. When my children were born, she sent me gifts for them. When her grandchildren were born, I sent her gifts. I got her son a job. We had a relationship for 30 years, never met until the day she retired. She didn't want to meet. She said, stupid relationship, but I don't want to meet you. I said, okay. And then the day she retired, she said, now we can meet. And we stayed friends for years. And she passed away a few years ago. But it's relationship. And, said to me, nobody ever offered to give me their phone number. I said, well, why wouldn't I do that?
Right. And now it's taking a job and making your life. Everyone talked about work-life balance, and I always struggled with work-life balance. For me, it never existed as a recruiter. It's a work-life blend. When you're in this industry and you're dealing with other people's lives and the importance of them getting a job and the depth of what that means to them and their family and their livelihood, it's like, it's not a job that can be turned on and off. But some people don't quite get that. And I'll say, Len, your takeaways at the end of this, the Len's rules for success in life and business are spot on. I mean, there's so much, when I started out, I was in a very high transaction type industry firm. It was all about the money, all about the place. I was never taught about the relationship side. And about 3 years in, I burned out. And I got brought over to another firm that taught me to build relationships for life, that recruiting, every opportunity you have to meet somebody, you're planting a seed, maybe for this week, but maybe for a year down the road. But the one thing you can control, and I think it's just so evident through your what you share in your book, it's build relationships. We're people helping people, right? This is not a transactional business. And I believe both sides, and I believe those transactional types of business are going to find themselves looking for new jobs not too far into the future, because I think the script is flipped quite a bit. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I genuinely like people. I'm naturally inquisitive. Whenever I meet somebody new, I could, in 3 questions, find something in common with them. And I just get a kick out of that. Okay. I really enjoy it, and it comes natural to me. Although I'm not, believe it or not, I'm not an extrovert. Okay. When I go to a party, I'm the first one to stay in the corner. Okay. Until I warm up. But when I'm in a business environment, I'll be the most gregarious guy in the world because I know this is my livelihood. But you know what? It's all about relationships. And I sound like a broken record when I say that, and this is what I teach and I preach to my team and my sons and my daughter. You have to get to know people. You have to, people do business with people they like.
Yeah.
Bottom line. Yeah. Okay. And if you come across transactional or just trying to push the deal, it's never going to work. I'm big on stories because I always illustrate with stories. I had a situation years ago where I had a client come to me with a job, and it was for a CFO. And I had a neighbor down the block from me where I lived before, who was out of work. And I called him and I said, his name was Nick. I said, Nick, I have a job that I think would be perfect for you.
Yeah.
And he said, is this with so-and-so? Because when I described it, he said, I just interviewed there. I said, really? I said, how'd you get in? He said, I went in direct. He said, I knew somebody. I called the client. I said, I understand you interviewed so-and-so. I said, yeah. I said, hire him. He said, what? I said, there's nobody better than him. I said, he was going to be the first one I would have sent. I said, hire him. I said, and don't pay you a fee? I said, no, I don't want a fee. I said, you saw him already. And I'm going to tell you, that client never forgot that I did that. And the candidate never forgot that I did that. Okay.
Yeah.
I have wanted a fee. Absolutely. But I said, you know what? I'm doing good for both sides. And they both remembered it.
When you do the right thing, it's going to pay out a lot more than one-time transactional fee, which I'm sure there's probably stories upon stories about how that relationship just blossomed over the years. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
That one fee I gave up turned into probably 30 or 40 others that I got from them. So
that's awesome.
I didn't do that, but it happens.
So talk to me. We talk great recruiters. Well, I will say is this. We used a slogan when we early on, and you were one of our early clients, and you've always been great and gracious with your feedback and what we're doing good, what we can do better. But we have an onboarding call, and we're supposed to schedule this onboarding call with everybody. And Len gets on this onboarding call, and it's all set up. And Len was admittedly technically challenged with. So our slogan was, it's so easy, even Len Adams can do it.
Thanks.
So people didn't know it, but you've been a great client of ours. And like you said, people love to provide. You have amazing reviews, but talk to me. There's another side of it. And I think there's a lot of opportunity and growth in the reviews that aren't positive. And you had just said you got a 2.8 star review. Talk to me about that story.
I got Franca got a 2.8 star review this morning. And, we take them very seriously. Okay. I told you anything under a 4.7, I call personally and want to know why.
Yeah.
Okay? And I called this candidate and she said, she said, didn't I check off? I didn't want to hear from somebody because there's a box in great. I said, I didn't look at that. I just looked at the review and it prompted me to call you. And she's going on and on and on about why she didn't want to talk to me. And I really just wanted to ask her because her review was that she was being questioned about things on her resume. And I wanted to explain to her that anybody could write anything on a resume. We're trained to question them to see if it's real. AI could write a resume. I could make you think I'm a physicist.
Sure.
Okay? But until you question me, you're going to know I'm not a physicist. All right. And she was very annoyed by that. Okay. And she wouldn't let me talk. So finally I said, you know what? You're so busy telling me why you don't want to talk to me. You don't know why I'm calling you. I said, so why don't we just end this right now? Okay. And it's unfortunate we got a bad review. Okay. And the bad review was a stupid reason because she didn't want to be questioned. And then I looked at her resume. She was 2 months here, 6 months there, 9 months. I said, she's a problem. I said, Franca, don't work with her. I said, we're not going to represent her. So
didn't turn that around. But you know what? The fact that you ask and the fact that you have it and you have that open door, you give them a voice. I'd much rather have that review come back to you, putting you in the driver's seat to handle it, than her going and posting something on a Glassdoor, a Google review, somewhere else where you don't have control. Right. I mean, that's the beauty.
She probably will because I think she But, I've had other situations where we have gotten a couple of bad reviews. We don't get, I mean, you see them. They're few and far between. And when I question them, I get one of two answers. Oh, I misunderstood what the stars were. Okay. I thought one was better. Okay. And then the other answer I get is, well, I didn't get the job, or I didn't get the interview.
Yeah.
And we put in our outreach to them, this has nothing to do with you getting the job or getting the interview. That's outside of our control. Okay. I just want to know, were you treated respectfully? Were you communicated with? Were we transparent? If we did those three things, we should get between a 4.8 and a 5.
Yeah, I agree.
And you see them, and I'm very fortunate. I really have a great team, not because they're with me a long time, and not because 3 of them are my children. They're not my children; they're adults. But they've all been trained right. They all follow from the leader my thought process, which is transparency, communicate, be honest, and deal with people the way you want to be dealt. And that's the bottom line.
One of the biggest lessons I took away reading your book, it was when you were working with your uncle that everybody thought you were the owner.
Yes.
And I think that's a powerful thing, right? How you conduct yourself, how you drive your business, act like the owner.
Yeah.
Right. Act like it is your business. You own that desk. You own those relationships. You own those experiences. You are the owner of your world. And so it's no surprise that people thought you were the owner of that organization.
Yeah.
And speaking about the book, talk to me about the title, Resilience. Like, writing a book and figuring out what to call it is a really, it's a process, right? And so why resilience? What can you unpack that a little bit?
That was probably harder than writing the book.
Yeah.
Back and forth with the publisher, and we had a couple of different names. And then finally I came up with it, and I said, okay, I've gotten through a lot. I've lasted a lot of years. How would I describe that? And it became resilience. I'm resilient. I get up when I'm down. Okay. And I never stay down, and I never stay negative. So I think resilience was the key word that I think describes me. I don't know if you were going to ask this, but I'll mention anyway. The reason I wrote the book was twofold. First of all, a friend of mine who's known me for years and who knew me before I went on my own and knew the whole story, he's an author. And he said to me, Len, you got a great story. Write a book. I said, I'm not an author. I said, who's going to read my book? I said, it's going to be a great doorstop somewhere. They're going to put it on the door, on the floor. He said, no, write the book. I'm telling you, it's a very interesting story. And it's an interesting story for anybody who's in business or in a family business as to how to overcome challenges. And I thought about it. I said, all right, I'm going to start writing it. And he gave me some pointers, and I worked on it for probably 6 or 9 months. And edited it and kept changing it. And it's really an interesting process. As I started writing it, I came from the mindset of, okay, I've got 9 grandchildren. Okay. And I want my 9 grandchildren when I'm gone, or as my 10-year-old goes, he won't say the word dead. He goes like this, when you're, well, he won't say that word, but and I gave them all a copy, and I wrote something to them, and I told my children, don't give them the book until much later on. Maybe I'll be older, maybe I'll be gone. I don't know. I said, but I want them to know how I thought, what I was all about, what I went through, and why I am the way I am, whatever that means. And that's how I started writing it, from that viewpoint. And that's why I put some of the stories in.
Yeah.
And that's why I put my rules for life, because I wanted to leave them something beyond the monetary things they're going to get. I wanted to leave them my thought process, because I didn't.
It's an amazing thought process. As you talk about it, it is for anybody that's in business. You don't need to be in staffing. That just happened to be the industry you're in. But as many entrepreneurs that are out there that have families, I mean, reading it myself, I'm drawing in my own experiences and reflecting on my own journey as I'm reading through that. And it's a vulnerable thing to do. I appreciate that your friend pushed you to go do this, because I think it would have been a shame, because you do have great stories to tell. And in itself, your journey is a great story. I think resilience is 100% spot on. I think you nailed it there. We're faced with challenges, whether it be with work, with family, with relationships, with health, with anything, right?
Mhm.
And it's that resiliency that kind of keeps you forward. But you said it, Len, you never get down.
No,
You've always, you're always putting your best foot forward, even on your worst day. What is that
I
how you've
survived
always
cancer.
been?
I survived cancer 2 years
Yeah.
ago. And when I first was diagnosed, uh, for the first week, I was really, really depressed, and it was terrible. And after about a week, I remember I came downstairs on a Saturday morning. I said to my wife, "This isn't me. Okay, I'm not comfortable being this way." And my father had cancer. He didn't die from it, but he always had a smile, always had a joke, and he got through it 4 times. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take after my father. As I'm going to get through this, I'm going to fight it, and I'm going to have a positive attitude. And I just changed my entire attitude. And, some people get something, they don't want to talk about it. I spoke about it with everybody, and I said, I'm going to get through this. And the doctors, after my surgery, said, we've never seen anybody pick up as quickly as you. I had surgery on February 9th of 2023. March 1st, I was back at work. March 14th, my wife and I were on vacation in Florida. Okay, and everybody said, "What?" I said, "This is me. I'm not going to sit down." But getting back to the book, I'm going to tell you a quick funny story. There's a girl that's in the book, a woman that's in the book that worked for me years ago, and I ran into her not too long ago. She worked for me 35 years ago, and she owns an eyewear place, interestingly enough. She said, "Lenny, I read the book." She said, "On Christmas Eve, I read your rules for life to my entire family." She goes, "Around the tree, we all sat down and I read them to everybody because it was that powerful to me." She
Yeah.
says, "And I learned so much from you many years ago." She goes, "I always respected you." And I have to tell you, it tugged at my heart. I really, really, really do appreciate hearing stuff like that, because I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the world. I don't think I'm the most prolific writer, but I'm getting really good feedback on it. So it makes me feel good. And I hope my
Well,
grandchildren enjoy it when they read it.
you
Hopefully.
definitely you, you definitely earned it. And again, it's right here. You can get it on Amazon. It's Resilience. It's My Family Business Journey and Unfulfilled Expectations. I love it. Hey, in closing, Len, I always like, this industry continues to grow and change, and you've seen it all. I've been in it about 25 years, and I've seen some ups and downs, but I see some things that no matter what we're faced with, there's things that just stay true. And if you were to go back and give advice to yourself when you first started, or give advice to somebody that's looking to get into this industry, what is the most important piece of advice you think you can provide somebody so they too can have a career as long as yours?
Very simple. Be true to yourself. Be true to
I love
yourself.
it. I
Don't
love it.
change your values. Don't sell yourself short. Don't sell out for a fee. Okay. Do the right thing all the time. If you do the right thing all the time, you'll survive. Okay. If you cut corners and you play games with people, it doesn't work. And you know what? It comes back to haunt you. Okay. And I just, maybe I've been fortunate because of the way I was raised, and, the schooling I had, and, Catholic school and all of that. It's that Catholic guilt, do the right thing all the time. Okay. But, I try to live that. And I try to teach my kids and my grandkids. And, it's just, I am who I am. Okay. Like Popeye says, right? I don't waver from that. Good,
You
bad, or
know,
different. Sometimes being that way is not good because people don't like that. But I always say, what you see is what you get.
yeah, yeah.
Look behind the facade.
I, it's funny, our great recruiters, great is the acronym for being genuine and responsive and experienced and advisor and transparent and reading through your lessons. All of those found a way in those lessons. And so, that to me is what recruiting's about. It's about being yourself. It's about being that genuine person. People want to work with people who are there for them, but are there as themselves, right? People can always
Listen,
sniff
we're
out of.
impacting people's lives.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're pushing somebody into something that you think may not be the right position, but I'm going to get a fee, that's terrible. I think it's terrible. Okay. I've had people, I've told them, don't take the job. It's not the right job for you. Not the right
right.
for you. So
short-term gain is what everybody looks for. A lot of people, I look for the long-term gain.
yes.
Right. It's a long-term game of life and how these little small gains can impact it positive or negative. And sometimes you're right. It's better to tell somebody to walk away.
That's
in
right.
the long term, they'll definitely remember it and respect you. But
Right.
Len, I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. If you are out there and you're looking for somebody that you can trust, who's been there, done that, whether you're looking to hire a CEO for a specs company or anything in between, as long as it's not IT, reach out to Len Adams and his team at ACG Resources. You at least know they're going to create a great experience. They're going to be there for you, and they're going to be honest, whether it's the right opportunity or not. And Len, any closing thoughts that you'd like to share before we wrap this up?
A couple of quick things. First of all, I do want to give props to Adam and Great Recruiters. They've been a great partner for us. Again, it allows me to really get the pulse of what my team is doing, okay, because they always better be doing the right thing. Otherwise, they're going to hear it from me. But again, we're very fortunate. They all do it. And, I think I've passed this on to my children and my staff that you do the right thing and it follows you all the way through. So, but again, we're impacting people's lives. It's a great business. And, if we do it right, you stay around a long time.
Love it. Love it. Well, as I always say, get 1% better every day. Continue your journey to greatness and stay resilient, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Len, again, thank you so much for sharing your story. And if you haven't bought a copy, get a copy. It's a great read. Len is a great author. And I just really appreciate your partnership, friendship, and here's to many more years to come.
100%. I agree. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
You recruiters out there, sign up for Great Recruiters. It'll give you a real pulse on your business. I really mean it. Okay.
Thank you.
It's been a great experience.
Awesome. Everybody, thanks for tuning in and have a great day.
Thank you.